Dabo, congratulations on winning our Carpe Diem Award. We're really excited for you to celebrate with us. Get Funded Africa's focus on realizing the potential of the continent's young and entrepreneurial people to have a global impact is expiring, and we're very excited to have the chance to celebrate you and your organization. So thank you and welcome and congratulations.
Thank you so much, Matt. Really, really excited to actually be talking to you today, and very surprised to have won the award, but also humbled. And so thankful very much to AFN and everyone in the organization and yourself for actually nominating and also helping us to win this award.
Tell us a little bit about Get Funded Africa.
So Get Funded Africa is a technology platform. And what we wanted to do was to provide transparency in terms of access to capital for innovators, those people that are solving problems. So to provide a bit of context, I say this story sometimes that generations of Africans have complained about, governance and the various governance structures and a lack of innovation. So my great-grandfather, my grandfather, my father, and rather than complaining about the different issues that are happening, I looked around and myself and my co-founder, and we were like, look, across the world, one of the things that has increased value and has changed economies is actually innovation, and innovation that actually helps with productivity of a small community or of a society or of a country. And if you look at it from an African perspective, there has been limited innovation in many areas. And so Africa has lagged behind in certain creative and innovative spaces, especially in technology and even in production. And so it then became, what are the drivers or what are the things that can actually drive innovation? So for example, what has the US done right in innovation and driving innovation? And one of the obvious things is actually venture capital. So venture capital is a private sector way of allocating capital to innovative sectors. And globally, even though it has its issues, it is one of the most effective ways of allocating capital to the drivers of innovation. And so naturally, the next step was, how can we actually drive or get capital to drive innovation, even though, well, hey, we don't have the capital to do that. And there's this African adage in a way, and I think there's also an English version, but essentially the summary of it is, if you can measure a thing, you can influence it. And so we started off by measuring who are the people that are providing capital and investing in African startups and SMEs, all these innovative people that are doing innovative things and solving problems. And we started off keeping track. Who are they investing in? What industries are they investing in? What countries are they investing in? Where are they actually from? Are they from the US? Are they from China? Are they from the UK? And we started keeping track of all this and actually created off a database. And then gradually we then started reaching out to these individuals on a one-by-one basis. What would actually help to provide transparency? So if you invested $1, for example, onto the African continent, what would help you to invest $2 or $5? And so we took a lot of all of those, all of that feedback and used that to, create what today is a technology platform using AI and machine learning tools to match investors with innovative startups, matching corporate organizations, matching the startups to mentors, matching them to advisors, even creating marketplaces, even to the point now where we're also leveraging AI to match SMEs, startups, corporate organizations, and generate leads and business for them. So this is a quick run through of how Get Funded Africa started and where we are today.
That's great. Thanks, Davo. When you think about some of the companies that you're working with right now, what's one or two that you would want to highlight?
Well, there's so many because currently we work with about 3,000 or so startups across 55 countries on the African continent, and even a large number of SMEs as well, about 50,000 of them. And if I was to mention one, I'll be in trouble with a lot of people. But
all right.
But what I do like to highlight some of the problems. So, for example, on the African continent, in many countries, there are issues related to energy. Energy generation and transition. And so we have a lot of renewable energy companies that are creating amazing products that are able to transform even, rural communities and small villages that had little or no electricity. And, on the healthcare side, you have companies that are transforming entire healthcare swaths. And these transactions are sometimes billions of dollars. One of the companies that we helped to, provide funding and raised a few $1 million for was a company that just needed, and just by the way, sometimes what is needed is a relatively small amount and the impact goes a long way. So what came to my mind for this particular company, the founder started the company because she lost a friend from fake drugs, some adulterated drugs. And so she then started a company that was then focused on making sure that, all the drugs, all the medicines out there were certified, verified. You can literally track and see, from where it was produced to where it was delivered with a seal and things like that. And she then entered into, the first of all, the gray market and tried to clean that up, and is operating in an industry that is worth billions of dollars currently. So this is how capital, and I say a little bit of capital because she raised a few $1 million and that went to affect over $1 billion in terms of that entire industry. So to a large extent, there are many of such innovative founders and innovative startups in different industries. And we like to think that Get Funded Africa is, you have a Batman and then you have a Robin. And so we're probably like the sidekick of, we believe that the founders are superheroes. So we are the sidekicks to the superheroes solving problems.
I love it. I love it. When you're thinking about some of the leadership principles that guide you, what's important to you as a leader?
As a leader, I think it's very important to have a business that has especially a social impact. So we believe that, so we're a for-profit business, but we're a for-profit business for good. So our activities and what it is that we do drives positive change in societies. And this is what I believe and why I'm passionate about, what we do in Get Funded Africa. We are providing transparency and have created like an ecosystem, right? And all of this is for a social good that impacts, first of all, the African communities, but also have a global impact, because a prosperous and thriving Africa is to the benefit of everyone. So a prosperous and thriving Africa means that there's a huge market for American companies or, German companies and things like that. So it's a win-win relationship. And these are the things that I am very passionate about. In addition, I'm also, very passionate about that ability to create an environment of learning, an environment of self-development, because we are who we are. We're on Earth for a specific period of time. And whilst we're here, what impact can we actually have on each other for good? So these are things that it's important to create that environment that fosters cooperation, that fosters growth, that fosters learning, and a win-win for everyone.
Excellent, excellent. So I'm always interested to know, what do you really like about what your job is? When you get up in the morning, why are you excited?
Well, I have hinted at it already. Just the impact that the organization has in enabling other people. So if you think of the fact that there's a problem and we are enabling the people that are solving those problems, and just by solving some of those problems, it could be something on the health side. And as you know, on the health side, it's life and death. So it's not just incremental betterment. It's literally a matter of life and death in many instances. And so the impact that we're having just pretty much makes me excited. Just the fact that we are helping people to solve problems in society and solve, in many instances, life and death problems, and beyond even life and death, but just even making it easier for people to do things. Fintech on the African continent is booming and growing. And one of the reasons for that is that a large percentage of the African population is actually unbanked. And that's a big problem, right? And so suddenly you then have these companies that we're enabling to have fintech services across the entire continent. It's the same thing with internet. And most people access the internet through their mobile phones. But even though it may seem prevalent that there are smartphones everywhere, the reality is that just about half of the people in the world, so less than 4 billion people, actually have access to mobile phones with internet access. The remaining, I believe that the correct statistic is only a third of the people actually have access to smartphones, and 2/3 do not. So they have access to phones, and typically they'll use feature phones, those phones that don't have internet access. So all you can just do is make a call or send an SMS and things like that. And there's just that internet gap. And we can think of the benefits of having internet access. You and I are having a call today, leveraging the internet, right? And so many people don't have access to that. And so just the fact that we're supporting companies that are solving problems, that are, leveraging the tools of technology that we have to solve problems is very, very exciting.
Great. What are you focused on in 2023? You've had a lot of good success in 2022. What are the big priorities for you this year?
So this year we've been lucky to grow 21, 22, and grow the number of startups that we are helping to that we're working with to raise funds. Our small organization, as it was initially, is now sometime in 2021 was responsible for about 3.6% of the total amount of funding on the African continent. Awesome. Last year it was about 5%. And so we're seeing that gradual progression in terms of what Get Funded Africa can actually do to help provide transparency and grow investments on the African continent. So A, we want to continue to do that. And then B, this year in particular, we're very focused on SME growth, small and medium-sized enterprises, and actually their business growth. So we're developing a lot of tools to help even more businesses grow to become startups. So as you can imagine, every startup is an SME, a small and medium-sized enterprise, right? But not every SME is a startup. The difference is that a startup is a fast growth, a company that is growing rapidly, irrespective of the initial size. And so we want to also help many SMEs to understand the various types of businesses, the different business models, and actually scale those SMEs and get more startups out of those SMEs. So this is a focus that we have in GFA for 2023.
Great. Africa, very large population across the continent, lots of different countries, a whole lot of diversity in terms of approaches all across the continent. How do you determine where you're focusing your efforts in this large, diverse set of countries?
Very interesting question. I think what we started off with was, what is the problem and where does this problem exist? And then it then became, where can we solve these problems? And so today we work with companies in 34 African countries. So that's 34 of the 55 African countries. And interesting. I think we first of all focused on the problem of where do you have innovations coming out of, and then it then became, from those places where innovations were coming out of, how can we actually increase the flow of funds and transparency and credibility into those places? And I think it organically came, and it was first of all the five key markets, so to say. So initially, so it was Nigeria, Kenya, South Africa, Egypt, Morocco, and it then we then started adding even more as to where there were even more opportunities. So the likes of Kenya, Ghana, Senegal, Uganda, Botswana, and various other African countries. And you're totally right. It's very diverse. But even through the diversity, some of these problems are recurring problems across the African continent. And so that helped us, first of all, to focus on the problem, and then we literally were then entering organically into these different countries to solve the problem.
And when you're thinking just about languages that you're operating in, do you focus on a particular set of languages to be able to interact with the entrepreneurs that you're trying to help?
So in some of the countries, what we've done is to actually have partners, particularly where language is a barrier. So we have partnerships with different local companies in those industries that have similar values or similar goals as ours. And based on those partners, we literally say, hey, this is what we're doing. This is how we're trying to achieve it. And we've been successful in working with several countries. And in fact, some of our partners have gone on to even bring in governments to also work with us in terms of deploying and getting things done and creating the right environments for innovation and for capital to be used. So we use local partners, and it's kind of like, in many places, technology first. In our case, it's more of the solution, and then we then digitize it. So, for example, we could have, say, French as one of the languages. And so it's more of what is the solution itself, and then that particular solution, how can we then get different modules in different languages to help the local populace?
So I'm going to ask you to get in your time machine and go to Friday evening. You just finished your week. Felt like a successful week. What happened that made it a good week for you?
You've asked what happened that made it a good week. I'll also tell you what I would do at the end of the day as well. And
Okay.
so, so typically, what, as I said earlier, what excites me is when we have actually helped to solve problems, and when we're able to reach a large number of people, of organizations, or if our partners or even the companies that we work with, if they have achieved impact in reaching people. So whether it's solving the problems of payments or even helping, generate power or whatever solution, I think what excites me is when we've been able to create opportunities, which I believe, in many ways is literally creating wealth for the African societies as a whole. And then even just the opportunity for those African organizations to even leave the African continent. So for example, recently GetFunded Africa has been partnering with several countries, governments in other countries outside of Africa. And we've then created opportunities for the startups and SMEs that we work with to leverage those partnerships and actually spread their ideas even beyond the African continent. That is something exciting. We have a few African companies that have come from Africa, have spread out their services, have even established so for example, in North America, we have a few companies that are providing bus fleet services in Canada, several others that are providing, healthcare services in the US, and same thing in Europe. So we have now many African companies that are even coming out of Africa and going to Asia, going to Europe, going to North America. And this is pretty exciting, especially when you are aware of that transition and that journey and how it happened in such a short period of time. So that is typically very exciting. And what then happens for me is that on a Friday evening, closing from work after an exciting week, it's food. And
nice.
and depending on where I am, so I'm Nigerian by birth. I am from Nigeria, and basically in Nigeria we have some cuisines which you probably cannot find anywhere else. But again, we need to export more food. And so
yeah.
And so typically it would be a nice dinner, with the family, in comfort food and just, relaxing and taking it easy. So that's what happens to end the week.
Excellent. Well, I do think your point is well taken. There's differences in infrastructure that you've got in a number of countries that's going to foster a different type of entrepreneurship, which means that there's different approaches that could be very useful outside of Africa and other parts of the world that we wouldn't have come up with just because we have different constraints to begin with. And so being able to export those solutions is massive.
Yes. And if you even look at it historically, this is so true. So take Kenya, for example. They started using mobile phones for payments way back when, right? Through M-Pesa. And M-Pesa is a precursor. I was watching a video recently, and there was a hint. Now, I don't know for sure because I can't verify this, that some of the ideas from PayPal even came from using mobile phones for payment, things like that. So you never know. Ideas are always transferable. So that's the beauty of ideas and innovation. It can go anywhere.
Yeah, we have a massive monolithic banking system in the US, and entrepreneurship, a lot of times you have to have pressure from outside to make things happen. So agree 100%.
So just on that point that you made, recently I was having same conversation with a friend of mine. So for example, in the US, you want to transfer funds from one bank to the other. So maybe from a Wells Fargo to a Bank of America, you probably have to use a Zelle or Zelly,
You're right. Yeah.
a peer-to-peer app. Meanwhile, in Kenya or in Nigeria, you just press a button, boom, boom, it's done, and it goes through to the banks, and it's received instantly, right? And so I get you. I know what it is.
We got some work to do.
Agreed. But where there's a problem, it means that there are many solutions and opportunities that exist.
Totally agree. So one of the things that we think about at AFN is that constant learning is really important. What type of activities are you doing to make sure that you are learning more about what's going on in the world, what's going on with your entrepreneurs? How are you stimulating your brain to learn more?
Two things actually. I would like to mention this about AFN and then answer the question. I think AFN is unique in the sense that you're able to bring together a coalition of CEOs from different backgrounds and just bring them together in a safe space to talk about the problems that they have. And what that does is that it unleashes innovation. There is something about just being able to talk about an idea that one has in a safe space and in a place that allows us as human beings to even fine tune our thoughts. Because usually when you're thinking of something, you're thinking internally, but when you're voicing it out, it's almost like you're bringing it to life. And then by other people then having maybe thoughts or comments about this, especially when you're at the C-suite level, then that even adds more flesh, if I can use that word. It adds more, it fleshes out and strengthens that idea. And so this is a key thing that I think AFN is helping to provide, and why the organization is very important. To the question that you asked as to, leadership and what I do personally, for me, I love to travel. And when I travel, I like to learn about different aspects of the location that I am in. So whether it is culture, food, or just business practices, or just the solutions that are available in such places. So for example, in China, you would see payment as something that is very easy, especially through QR codes. So you have Alipay, WeChat Pay, and all the other payment options. And so you're able to see from a business point of view how even these organizations enable other organizations. So just payment is directly related to things like delivery and last mile delivery, essentially. And so you're able to, I visit a lot of places, a lot of countries, and I can, learn about their culture, learn about their history, learn about their food, learn about their business. And I think that keeps me stimulated because I'm a lifelong learner. And so you stop learning when you're dead, right? So
That's excellent. I think access to diversity of perspectives is so important to be able to figure out, hey, what are other people doing? How can we use that? And the fact that you travel a lot, that gives you access to all those different perspectives that are out there in different countries. What's one place that you want to go that you haven't been yet?
Okay. Let's see. A place I want to go and I haven't been yet. Currently, I'd like to visit Madagascar.
Okay.
That's on my to-do list this year. I have, for some reason, I just haven't visited Madagascar, and I would love to go in there and walk through the baobab trees. I haven't seen one in person, a live one, so I have seen it in pictures and stuff like that. So I would really love to visit Madagascar sometime soon.
Excellent. Well, Debo, thanks a ton for your time. Really great to have a chance to talk to you. Congrats again on winning our Carpe Diem Award, and looking forward to a great 2023 with you.
Thank you so much, Matt. Great to be here, and thanks again. for the honor.